And Bill, thank you for sitting down and now expounding on some of these studio hacks questions that folks have. The big question, what would you recommend for actors to focus on to improve their sound quality from home?
Yeah, I think one of the most overlooked things is acoustics. I think one of the questions someone had submitted earlier was, when can we go back into studios? And one of the answers I got from Dave when I was chatting with him last night is that, people never stopped. They never stopped. I guess they've continued to welcome people into the studio when necessary. Especially vaccinated folks now could very easily go into a studio to do a job. So being a union commercial voiceover here in Chicago, other than auditioning, I've never really needed a home studio. But one of the things, like I had said earlier, people underestimate the viability of their sound quality. And Dave had told me that, and this is a very similar number, it's a little more, I think, but Dave told me that, as I had mentioned earlier, 87% of the auditions were less than optimal quality coming from home. And so I think it definitely reflects well upon us if we can present a clean signal, if that's what you want to call it, for our auditions. Eric was talking about in one case, at least, the client skipping over subpar auditions, but I think that was probably driven by the pandemic. And I tried to ask him that question, and he somewhat answered it. That if they knew they were going to have to use that audio, and they got like not a very good sound quality coming in, they might just be like, look, we can't deal with that, and then move on. But I still think audition quality, I think that makes a big difference. I think people, when they hear it, you stand out. It doesn't have to be loud. So anyway, acoustic treatments can make a really big difference. And I have a few files that I can play down for you here. Yeah, this should work. I have that set right. So let me play down just a couple examples. I didn't have a time to trim these files, but I can play a few of them. I was in my closet for you guys to show you. No joke, Stan. Oh, Stan's gone. So anyway, let me play down this first example of what it sounded like in my closet, because I have this huge box of insulation, which does an amazing job of absorbing reflections and sound energy. And the thicker it is, the more it absorbs. The thicker it is, the lower the waveforms it can tackle. So you guys should be able to hear this when I play this example in the closet here. Okay, I am in my closet, and you can hear the closety sound. I'm facing sideways, which is a bad way to face. When I turn towards the clothes and I get a little bit closer, into this area here, it actually starts to sound a little better, but you can still hear the resonance of the closet. That I carried up from the basement, still almost a little bit winded from that. And I'm going to use that box of insulation. I'm just going to place it here, open it up, and see if it makes a difference in the sound. Okay, so I am facing. Already I can tell that this is making a difference when I walk into. You guys can hear that. Okay, now I'm facing I'm getting in closer to the insulation, and it's really thick. So it means it's absorbing a lot. You can hear the difference in here, but even still, actually it's a lot better. It's a lot better. If I come down into the middle of it here, you can hear that it sounds better. Now, if I turn around, it even helps there a little bit, but you can hear how the resonance is in this space, especially if you're wearing headphones, like Eric was recommending. If I face this direction, obviously that does not sound very good at all. However, I'm going to go to this next board. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's me lifting the box up in the middle. I'm holding up the box of insulation approximately in the space where I was speaking into the window where I was just speaking. Okay, granted, I'm holding the box of insulation on an angle here because it does not fit in the space where I was speaking. But
I'm going to go to the next one here.
This is
and the question was being asked, do you have a picture of this box that you were using?
Actually,
or do you have it nearby? Can you show us what?
Yeah, I did. I did take a picture for that reason, and I didn't put it in the computer here. So I think if I hold this up to the camera, you can get a sense. Well, that's getting the reflection there, but do you see that box? So it's a large box. I think I took another picture just to show you how thick that is. It's more than a foot thick on the side there. And that's with the 416. But I think there's one more in here, maybe a couple more.
The question is also being posed, how does a box of insulation like that compare to a reflection field or a reflection shield or to Auralex? So
right. Well, it's actually better. It's actually better. And I'll get into that in a sec. Those are good questions. Let me go on to this next. Or actually, I think this is in my living room, just as another example. That's where that box was.
Okay, now I'm in my living room speaking into the Stellar X2, one of the microphones that I had mentioned earlier. So as I just say, like, you can hear that I'm in a reverberant room. As I back up, you can hear more and more of the room, obviously. And as I come in, you hear more of the mic. And if I get in really close, you get more of that proximity effect.
All right, here's wait.
Okay, so from the same position in the room, this is the 416. If I get in reasonably close, it sounds pretty good comparatively. I mean, a little plosive there, but it's, it's a bit tighter.
Yeah, let me go to the later part of this recording so I can show you the comparison.
The 416 sounds like in comparison. Full reverberance of this room. What the...
Yeah. So that was without it, and this is with it.
Let's try a little bit tighter in spite of the room. Now...
Yeah, so the problem with this, I just wanted to show you just with one point of insulation that was doing the job of absorbing the sound. It made a huge difference. Ideally, and I'll get into this as we move along, ideally, we'll talk a little bit more about like how to place these kinds of things and some other alternatives. But, that sounded, you said it sounded distorted? Yeah. But anyway, the point was maybe was that going through too hot? I don't know. But anyway, as long as you got the point that that just that one point, that would be the equivalent of a really thick bass trap, which give you an example of just how one of those would affect the sound.
So the next question then ends up being, when considering what you might need or what's the best way to go, what should people consider for home acoustic treatments?
Yes. So yeah. Honestly, I think that there's so many considerations. And I just want to focus on a few for our purposes. Most of us would do well, obviously to treat the areas with the first reflections. So that means, and I was trying to think of a good way to describe this. If we were able to like shrink ourselves down to the size of a microphone, and from the microphone and the walls, ceiling, and floor were all mirrors, and you were still standing in the front of the microphone as if you were going to audition or record something. Wherever I could see basically your mouth, where your voice, where the sound comes out, wherever I could see that in the walls, the ceiling, the floor, that's what you want to treat. You want to treat those areas. Those are the first reflections. I mean, if you want more information, we're going to provide some links later that will talk about, room modes and harmonics and all that, or you could go deep, and I don't think that's anybody really cares about that. In this case, though, if you treat the first reflections, you'll be in good shape. So if someone like Stan were doing this, he would need a thicker, more of a bass trap, probably at least 4 inches, to offset his deeper voice. If you have a higher voice, probably get away with like a 3-inch type thing. You can see like where the attenuation begins, and the thicker, the lower the waveform. And usually we roll off at 80. So if you get 4 inches, you're in good shape. And I honestly think, I mean, depending on how quiet the room you're recording in, yeah. So I was talking to Dave, and he said that he uses this vocal booth to go. And again, Jess has a link to that, right?
And
Yeah,
I'll be sending a document that also has a link to this after the fact. So Maya, was that a symbol of wanting to know what the cost of that was? See, I saw that.
Yeah, right. Well, I'll tell you, I looked it up. There's a B stock version, and it's like $675. Now, what it is it looks almost like packing blankets on a frame of PVC, but they also have a DIY section. And if you got a 3x3 DIY booth with the blankets necessary to make it work, it would be like $469. And if you did it with a fitted top, that's like $542. And they'll also send you an LED light for $50, but I think we could probably find one cheaper. So that's something like that would just be easier to get. I did some comparisons. And I have got my computer audio plugged in here, so hopefully the darn phone won't ring, or I'll just have to answer and hang up on this one. But there's a lot of options in this case. I also kind of went down the rabbit hole of, there's a place called Acoustimac online, and they'll sell you it's a brand called Rock Wool, and they'll sell you these mineral wool panels that are about 1 inch thick each. You can get a box of those for like $50, which gives you 6 of those, which would be the equivalent of
we'll send a link to that as well.
Yeah, there's a link in here. But the point is that you could also buy frames for those. So if you wanted a DIY for under $250, you could get the materials to make 2 of those 4-inch, by 2 foot by 48-inch panels, and like talk into those. You could, get a smaller one that would go over your head for that reflection, and still have enough for an additional one behind you, because that'd be 2, 4, 5.5. So you'd have a little extra for $250, but you'd have to do a little work, and you might want to get some fabric to wrap around it, or just you can outright buy these panels from these places. They'll sell them to you pre-made. That's way easy, but they're very expensive. I mean, comparatively. So if you want to, now the other way to go, well, I want to reiterate, you guys heard that resonant frequency in the closet. That's a big problem. If you're going to record in a small room like that, that can be a big problem. And so the only way to even have a chance is with something like we're talking about here, with a thick bass trap type thing. There's also something I noticed on that site, what's it called? The Vocal Booth to Go. Vocal Booth to Go site, is they have a track that you can install on your ceiling. And then with the grommets, you can basically pull. They look like packing blankets, but they're actually acoustic blankets. So they're a bit more effective, but they're not as thick. That's why I'm warning against this. If you, say, wanted to record in your closet and you had one of those tracks with the blanket, which wouldn't be as expensive because it's one of those blankets and then you have to buy the track. And I have no affiliation with any of these freaking websites. It's just, I found that, and that's what Dave used, and I thought that was cool.
Right, they're not product placements.
Right, this is not a product placement.
There's no sponsorship, right?
You could always pull one of those around you, but if, say, you were in a closet, you'd still have to worry about that resonant frequency, and that's where you might want to make a couple bass traps, and then maybe put something up top still. So, it's a challenge when you get into a small space like that, because it resonates like a bell. And I think it's important to keep that in mind, because you can't get that out of the recording. You really just can't. It's not viable.
Mm-hmm. And I see in the chat also it was suggested foambymail.com has great prices too. So again,
Excellent.
proof that this is not one sponsorship. See, there's so many options.
Yeah, a lot of this stuff works. I remember who had sent that? That was Maya. By the way, Maya, I'm so sorry I called you Mia earlier. That is ridiculous. You even have it right next to your name here, Maya. I apologize. That's horrible. But yeah, I remember Jay was talking about he's got a bunch of, is it Rolex? I don't remember if I recall correctly, but all this stuff can work. So the main thing is that depending on what kinds of issues you're having, acoustic problems, you know, if you're in a small space, it is kind of tough to have to put really thick absorbers. The mineral wool and you know, the fiberglass insulation, you got to be careful with that because you want to wear a mask, which we all have now, maybe some gloves and because it can irritate your skin and all that. And that's why if you're going to use that stuff, you really have to cover that with some kind of fabric just to be safe.
So acoustic treatments being one thing, another important component, obviously, maybe the most important component, is the actual audio equipment. Even in chat right now, Stan's mentioning that it was suggested that an MXL R80 mic was good for his pipes, but he was getting sound around it. He went with the Rode NTG1. How do you know what is the right audio equipment for you? Right.
Stan, quick question. Was that that MXL mic, was that a large diaphragm condenser? Wait, let me look up.
Is he here?
Oh, you're muted. Oh wait, did you mute him?
Oh yes, here you go.
All right, here we go. Nice. We're gonna shut you up, Stan. Now I think maybe you need to unmute.
Yeah, or you could chat us.
Yeah, just show me the box.
Oh, okay, here I go. It wasn't a condenser. It was a ribbon mic.
Oh wow!
For stage and studio.
Holy cow! Look at that thing. Wow, that's very interesting. Yeah, yeah. That would. And did you like it, or did it sound too muddy?
I had too much sound around it. It wasn't, you know, I was picking up all kinds of bouncing things. I mean, it might have been nice for the pipes, but it was just, you know, too much noise around it.
You know what? You could use that. The reason why that microphone probably has
I needed a shield behind it.
Yes. Well, I would say do a couple of bass traps. Just a quick, if this were a ribbon microphones, it's like a piece of tin foil that picks it up on both sides. So
yes, I know. I've used it in radio.
I'm not telling you, I'm telling everybody else. So it's so thin that there's complete, there's like nothing being picked up on the sides. So you have a perfect figure eight where the sides are excellent rejection. Problem is you got the backside. So when you're talking into a wall, you're going to pick all that up and you're going to get standing waves and it'll be horrible. So you have to have bass traps to offset that. And I would also put something on the ceiling, nice rug underneath, and maybe even hang something behind. And, you know, like I'm saying, with a little DIY, you could do something like that for, you know, the good news, the benefit of using that mineral wool is that it's not at all toxic, and it's not going to cause issues for you, like if you use fiberglass and you inhale that or something. So anyway, well, thank you, Stan.
In the Navy, man, for 4 years.
I did not expect that to be a ribbon mic, but that's very interesting. So, so thank you for that. So yeah, I'll go on to that to answer that next question.
Yeah, obviously mics are a part, audio interfaces, but how do you know what is your gear? What are your suggestions? What do you?
Well, interestingly enough, when I was talking to Dave last night, he said something that made excellent sense. And that is for home recording setups, I would recommend what Stan has right there. I would recommend a hypercardioid, or, you know, I'm using this one right now. This is, that's the 416. And I've got this pretty robust mount on this thing, but you'll notice it's very, very directional. So as soon as I do this, you'll hear that now I go off axis very quickly. So here, and then you're not getting as much. So by the way, a lot of that has to do with channels that create a phase cancellation, or so it basically just cancels out. It's pretty interesting to me. but I won't say any more about that. So yes, this would be the best mic for home recording, but these are like $1,000.
Oh, hold on, Stan. I muted you for Bill's
Okay.
presentation. I'll have to unmute you again if you have a question or if you want to drop.
Stan, are
it
we
in
going to
the
have to
chat.
mute you again?
I muted him just for the cleanness of our recording for YouTube.
Yeah,
Sorry.
you're unclean, Stan. No, so what?
This is, see, I already miss Henrique juggling the
Oh my
plates.
God.
Oh,
No,
Lordy.
that's so great. Yeah, it is.
Um,
It'd be nice to have a Henrique on board to
true.
take
That's
that off
true.
your hands.
But yeah, if you had a question you want to throw in the chat, Stan, Bill, you were saying this is the mic, and why do you say this is the mic? What makes this?
Because it's hypercardioid. It's so focused, and I have just it's a perfect time for you to ask that question, and it's not like we didn't plan this. And I put that. Sorry, it's a little loud. I'm putting that back on the on my mic stand there. The microphone that everybody talks about, that everyone wants to get one that sounds like, is this one. This is the Neumann U87, and I have to say it is just a spectacular sounding microphone. I'll switch over to this one here. Let me turn this off.
Yeah, let's hear it. Let's hear.
I have these set up. I might have to turn that down a little bit. It's a little on the loud side. But yeah, just listen to how nice that sounds. It's just like butter. This is a very expensive microphone. I've got a story about it, which I won't bore you with right now. I did not pay what you usually pay for these microphones, and it's brand new. It's a beautiful thing.
And what's the name of this one again?
This is the Neumann U87. If you've been in studios and recorded, any of the big studios have these in them. This is one of the best microphones ever made. But to give you an example, in the United States, with this shock mount and this microphone that you see here, you'd have to pay $3,600. So that's insane. That's insane. Most people aren't going to do that. And it's insane that I have this, right? I did not pay 36, but holy moly, it's expensive any way you slice it. But it's a beautiful, beautiful sounding microphone. So keep this sound in mind, because I got to figure out which one I plug this into. I'm going to pick up another microphone that is patterned after this mic that costs $200.
Hey.
So hold on just a second. I love this. This is the Stellar X2 by Tech Zone Audio.
So we're switching to the Stellar X2.
I'm going to switch to that one just as a comparison. Hold on just a second.
Okay, using this as the audio reference point. Yeah, when you say $200, that's a price point to my ears. Though, of course, rich sound, rich like butter, as you say.
Okay. Wait, that's the wrong one. Sorry. This is, yeah, here it is.
Hey.
So this one is $200. So, I mean, it's also, you hear that proximity effect, but you get in there. This sounds remarkable to me for the money. Now, this is also a large diaphragm condenser, but I honestly don't feel like I'm hearing a ton. Well, this is a very well treated room, but I'm not hearing as much of the room. It's sensitive. So anyway, this is a viable option. It's a little on the heavy side, but I was blown away by this microphone as an excellent option for people. Another microphone that I've got two others just for comparison, just to let you know the kind of microphone it is. Like, here, obviously the low end gets bigger when you move in because it's a directional microphone, what do they call it? It's a gradient transducer or something like that. Anyway, this, so that's why you don't get in an Omni, you don't get the proximity effect. I'm going to switch over to an omnidirectional microphone just to show you quickly that the sound pressure levels will increase, but the bass won't become more noticeable, but you'll get way more of the room. So let me turn this off. Okay, that's not it. Okay, yes, it's this one. So this microphone, you'll notice this when I come in close like this, it just sounds close, but it doesn't sound bigger on the bottom end. Mm-hmm. So what's interesting about this microphone is that you're going to get a lot more of the room. Like Stan was having that issue with the figure 8 pattern without so this is just, it sounds thin. I mean, if you were doing voiceovers with something like this, people would be like, doesn't sound very good. All right, so I'm going to turn this one off. And the last one I just wanted to demonstrate is a dynamic microphone. This is with a moving coil. It is not a condenser.
And what was the name of this one that you just used?
Oh, this one here, this is an Earthworks QTC40, but unless you're doing like recordings like I do of chamber music concerts, you wouldn't need one of these. Hold on just a second. Okay. Yeah, so this is an excellent, pretty clean sounding dynamic microphone. However, it's not as sensitive as a condenser. So these are the kinds of microphones you may become accustomed to hearing for broadcast. So, Stan, the RE20s in a radio station. Stan did radio for a long time. I'm going to keep picking on you, Stan. You're like the first thumbnail up there. So these are good sounding microphones, but they don't have quite the detail and brightness and responsiveness as, if we go back to this baby. Sorry. So yeah, they do not have the nice, beautiful sort of butter sound of a nice sounding condenser microphone like this. So I'm going to go back to my 416, which is in front of me. It is a shotgun. These were originally used, the shotguns, not the one I'm speaking into. Let me go back to that.
And I think this idea to bounce between the microphones and really just give kind of an audio palette. It's like a charcuterie board of microphones right now.
It's
like
cool.
A sampler platter.
Yeah, this is the Audio Technica 4033. Did I do this one? Okay, it's this one. This microphone, actually, this is an excellent microphone. If you were to get this microphone, these are like $300. I recorded the Delta Airlines telephone system on this microphone, which doesn't really say anything because they dumbed that down to, I think, 8 kilohertz or something. So this one though has a very pronounced, it gets really fat when you move in like that. So you'd have to be very careful about maintaining your position on this microphone to offset the proximity effect. So like right in here, and with a little bit of processing, this is a very good mic. By the way, this microphone, if you're a singer, when they did a blind test at CRC some years ago, this came in second against all of their very expensive microphones. And I've tested it out in that regard, and I have to say it sits really well in the mix. Microphones that you have like this, that you might talk into all by themselves, you have to take into consideration how that blends in with other stuff. And we're getting way off topic, but so this is a good option, but it takes a little more sense of where you are in comparison with the microphone in order to manage your proximity effect. But you can tell it does sound different than this one, the Tech Zone Audio one. There it is.
And question being posed in the chat, which is, when that distance mic pick up outside source noise? So
yeah, that's why. Yeah, see, like this one here sounds a little bit. It doesn't sound quite as heavy as the one I just had. But when I come back to this one, this is the 416, which is in an odd position. It sounds more like there's more reflections where it is, but that's why Dave and I would heartily recommend using something like this in your studio, because it's hypercardioid. It doesn't have the large diaphragm that's going to pick up, those will just pick up more of the room. Anything beyond cardioid is a bad idea for this kind of thing. Plus you'd miss the proximity effect. But this microphone is great because it's so tight. It shrinks the room in that regard. If you've got some, like I've got in my room here, these, like this thing back here, you can notice that's 4 inches. And that does a good job of knocking down the reflection. So that's why I would recommend this. And that's why you really do have to, whatever microphone you use, it's important to have. For the price, that the Stellar X2 sounds really good. I heartily recommend that. But again, you got to worry about how well it operates in the space.
Yeah, and I think that's where it's hard. It's like definitely not a one size fits all approach, because you know what your audio acoustic treatment needs to be based on the space and the outside considerations. Like we're talking about sounds of outside noise or people chipping on floors or courtyard fountains or things like that.
Oh God, yeah. Well, the outside noise is one of those things that there's really no good answer for it from home, unless you want to build a room in a room and separate the walls, because when walls touch and this side vibrates, it transfers straight into this one. And in one of the links, there's a video online that does a really good job of demonstrating how that happens. And it makes a lot of sense. But so just along the lines of recommending these kinds of microphones, Stan likes his NTG1, I believe you said, but there's also a 2, a 4, and a 5, and they get progressively more expensive. That Rode makes. Audio-Technica appears to have a good microphone. So yeah, those are some options, and you can kind of look around and ask around to see what people are using and what they like.
So we've just done. Question being, would you recommend the Stellar X2 over Rode NTG1, or is it kind of?
Well, no, the NTG1 is a
superior.
Well, no, it's a shotgun. Yeah. So the benefit or the utility of having a shotgun is that it's hypercardioid. I think that if your space is treated and you've accounted for the acoustics of your space, yeah, you could use one of these. This actually is not too bad considering. There we go. This one's not too bad. I don't hear as much of the room as I thought I would with this microphone. So it's pretty good. I think it does a good job. I wouldn't hesitate to recommend it.
But we've been talking predominantly about microphones with audio interfaces. Eric wasn't keen as much on the USB microphones. Should we avoid them? What is your thought about how those compare to what we've been sampling?
Yeah, I think if you're serious about voiceover, that it's probably best that you should do like an audio interface and a decent microphone and have some acoustic treatments. However, when I was talking with Dave last night, he said that he recorded someone who was using an AT2020 USB Plus. It's important that you keep in mind the Plus, because there's also just the AT2020 USB microphone. But the Plus, he said, wow, that sounds great. And also, I really like the Apogee MIC, the mic. They also have a hype mic version, which gives you compression that's added in. And I listened to it and I thought, hey, sounds pretty good. So that's a possibility. The hype one, but the USB version is $185. That AT2020 USB Plus is $150. You may even be able to find some of these used. There's older versions of some of these too. You want to keep that in mind. But if you got the hype mic that gives you compression, that's $250. So that would be on the expensive side of a USB microphone, but it sounds quite good as far as those kinds of microphones sound. And the Blue Yeti has been a really popular one, and they do sound pretty good. I think that would be excellent if you were doing podcasts or if you were doing this kind of thing a lot. From a voiceover standpoint, for auditioning, I think you could get away with it, but I wouldn't necessarily be rely on that one for my main sound. But again, it's not bad.
So audio treatments being all one thing, interfaces, mics, USBs. Now the next question. Oh, we have a couple questions here.
Yeah.
Saying to me, plugged an Apogee into my system. It sounded great on playback. Yeah, so it can work out.
Yes.
And we'll get into editing software as well, Kate. We'll come back to that. What about connecting outside with clients over the internet? Do folks need Source Connect? What is your thoughts about how?
Over the pandemic, they had to have Source Connect because they couldn't go into the studio. So, if we were doing this like a year ago, it would be, all that much more relevant. What's going on with this thing here? There we go. So yeah, these days, I think there still are people that require that we do sessions remotely and use Source Connect. I ran a session for my daughter. She's Taft-Hartley right now. She could join the union, which makes me proud. But at the same time, she still can do these non-union gigs. And what was funny is we did this job in here, and I was running Source Connect and all the rest, and it sounded quite good, and I was proud. She did a good job. The woman afterwards said that it was the smoothest session she'd ever had or experienced, even with adults. And I thought, isn't that what non-union voiceover? No, anyway, who knows? But I have to say, all I have to say is this: it's so cool to be able to do something like that from your home studio, having, doing commercial stuff. I've never needed that. And I've never been able to do that kind of thing. I've always gone into studios because it's commercial. It's like you just go into the studio. And I think that's best. That's certainly best for the vast majority of us, but it is cool. It is cool. So it'll run you with tax, like probably $700 up front to get, and then maybe $100 a year. Oh, Jay's raising his hand. Yeah.
I didn't mean to, but I was just saying, yeah, that's true, because the last couple of Source Connect sessions, I had the engineer right off the back. I was like, man, what are you running over there? Because the last few people we had to have them go close to the mic and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And they were just so relieved. It was like we just talked about the weather and stuff because we didn't
That's
need
so great.
That's
great.
You don't need a lot of tests. Everything's working the way it's supposed to, and yeah, coming through.
No, that's excellent. That's excellent. Yeah. But I would say that, yeah, we're all used to doing the Zoom stuff. I wonder if I could share my screen for this. In fact, I might just put it back on this screen and share this one, and I can demonstrate for you. Let's see if I bring up this. Actually, yeah. Let me share my screen real quick. Yeah, this desktop. So it'll be all black on your end, but I'm going to open up the preferences in Zoom. I'm assuming most all of us know this because we're in the meeting. But when I bring these preferences, you should be able to see them now, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, good. So, in fact, you know what? I need to bring my microphone with me. Let's see which one will go over there. Sorry for this.
But the question being posed and what we're getting into is, does a person need Source Connect then?
Right. Here, let me mount this one over here. And actually, this will be helpful once I do so, because then you guys will be able to hear me in this location. All right, good. So let me bring this up here.
I think what we're learning is what we need is a father like Bill in the background to run our session for us, so you could just go back to being a voice actor, right?
Oh man, it's so great. I guess
the question is, are your services for hire as a freelance father?
It's interesting.
Father engineer,
freelance father. When my actually another friend of mine who's a voiceover had was considering that she might need to do a session, and I told her, I'm like, yeah, sure, she's close by and she could come in, and if it became a regular thing. But it turned out to be a really complicated thing, and it was going to be a series. And so I'm like, and they even said that they should probably go with a studio. And I'm like, thank God, because that belongs in a studio. So anyway, so here, when you go into settings and you go to audio, you guys should already know this for this, but the point is it's similar to all the rest of these types of things. So here, when I click this, you can see I've created a bunch of different, that I use for Source, Source Nexus to connect. But I'm going through my that's my audio interface, and then same thing here for the microphone. But that's how you configure them. You find it in there, you click it, and you're good. And I think you should know that already. But if say, one other thing while I have you over here, hold on a second, let me drag this over, just to demonstrate this briefly. Don't want to waste our time, because I think, wait, where did that go? Wait, do I have it? Oh yeah, maybe I have to open it again. Here we go. Yeah, it was closed. Okay, so if I bring this is Source Connect. And if we log in here,
then that opens up. And when you go up here, this right here where it says audio options, it's not, if you've never worked with this before, you might not notice that right away. But when you do that, so this will be high quality mono, 48 kilohertz. Down here shows you the input and the output. And usually what comes with Source Connect is this link down here. It may be grayed out because I'm already connected, but that's linked. Now, another thing you could do is I could simply use my UFX Plus. This is all the channels that are available. It's nuts. And if I'm coming into, I don't even know which one it is, honestly, but you click that, or you click whatever your input is, where your microphone's plugged in, and then you choose the output, same kind of thing. If you have link set up inside of Pro Tools, I'm not quite sure how that works in other software, but then they've got these things here, that's CRC, but this is an echo, where if I double click that, then I connect to echo, or I can click connect, and then as I talk, I can hear the echo come back to determine if my settings are right and if it sounds good. So that's how Source Connect works, but it's down here. It's you got to click this little thing here, and then it's down in this section here where you configure in and out. Now, if I had a USB microphone, it would show up there, like the USB streamer. It shows up, and you click it, and you decide what that is, and then output could be my built-in speakers. Like I could put headphones, plug them into my computer, and I could hear. So, in a pinch, if I just said my input's going to be my my interface, and I have my mic plugged into 1, then I would, you get the idea. I'd go up here and I'd click 1, and then that would be my input. They'd be able to hear me, and then the output, I would choose just my built-in output, and I'd be able to hear them. So that's how that can work. And it's the same thing if you wanted to do same exact configuration if you wanted to use Google Voice, or I think I'm repeating myself here. I think most of you guys get this, you understand this, so I won't belabor it, but one of the things, this is the difference in Source Connect now, is that Source Connect now is browser-based off of the Opus codec that I had mentioned when I was talking to Eric. And so I've already logged in. So if I start a connection, then you have to, you got to show, I think I just put in passkey or something. Yeah. So in this case, you can determine if you want to do, depending on what the other person you're sending audio to can handle, or you can do the stereo. Now this might say 256, and Source Connect standard might have a lower kilobits per second, but it's a way better quality, so don't let that fool you. So if I do this, and then I go, how many people? Well, you could do 9, and then connect now. Once you get in, then you can determine, yeah, it's like, we'd like to update. No. So here's the same thing. So one of the things that is important to know here, which won't be a waste of time, is let's say that I do this for my input. It's not showing up yet because you have to refresh that. And then the output would be, let's just say default here. And then I'll refresh those settings. It restarts. And now you can see my voice coming through. It's picking that up. So we're good. And then if someone else joined in, we'd hear them through here. So that's how that works. And I could send you an invitation. That's the other part. Or if someone else sends you an invitation, you can log in and you'll find that stuff. So I just wanted to demonstrate that quickly. I'm going to sign out and close out of here, but that's Source Connect now. You have to have a, let me see if I log in.
And Bill,
Okay.
we're getting a couple questions as you're doing this. A question being, one, why does it say busy at Echo 48 Mono when we were looking at Source Connect, not Source Connect now? That's just a connection that's already on there.
Yeah, someone else was checking their their sound. So they were using that echo. So there's a limited number of echoes, and that's why it was busy. And if someone else is on, when you have Source Connect, you basically, there's a, what do you call it? Like an address book of the people you've made connection with. And so
if one of you guys has Source Connect, we could connect and then we could talk that way. But you first have to like send them an invitation and that kind of thing.
Which is why we also saw CRC on your list and that they were busy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Right. So Eric and I actually did use Source Connect. That's why you could hear me back in his audio because he wasn't wearing headphones. So, all right, let me come back over here.
And also being asked, settings, are they what we need to set, or would an engineer dictate what they want? So that would be something that could be
they would dictate what it is they're looking for. And let me stop that share. I'm back. So yeah, that I just wanted to, I don't know how many of you, if that's beneficial or not, or if you're like, we know how to do this stuff. But that's, the one that is a little tricky is Source Connect because it's kind of hidden. And then Source Connect now is free, but you need to log in and sign up for that.
And in the interest of time, I'm going to just, acknowledge that we want to do some Q&A at the end too, after we finish recording. But bouncing the questions also about outside of Source Connect, there's Google Voice. And as also mentioned in the chat, folks have used Zoom. Where and what do you think is appropriate to tell us about thoughts on routing and all of that on those interfaces for sessions?
Yeah, I think the easiest way to go is just to use your audio interface. You've got an audio interface or even a USB microphone plugged in. It'll show up as an in and an out. And then you'll have to figure out how to monitor stuff through your audio interface. A lot of times there's a way to mix that kind of stuff. That would be the rub, I guess, for that. That would be more, but in a pinch, you could just use your computer audio and plug into that and maybe just put one ear on and one ear off because you're not going to be hearing yourself coming back that way necessarily, but you'll be able to hear the client and they'll be able to hear you, and that could work. So it doesn't have to be complicated. One of the things that I do have, which I really like, is it's loop back from Rogue Amoeba. And if you had to do more complicated or complex routings, you can use loopback to do that. It, in a way, it kind of hijacks your system audio, and you got to remember to turn that thing off because it'll drive you nuts if you forget you've done something because it reroutes. It'll stay rerouted. But yeah. So that's a cool one. That actually allows for really creative routing that I've used for professional purposes as a sort of a help. But most people probably don't need that. However, you could route something so that you hear yourself as well as the client through your computer. So if you had to plug into your computer and you wanted to create a routing that took the computer audio, the pass-through, as well as you're adding the output from your audio interface to pass through into the computer as well, then you could adjust the volume inside of loopback and have it that way. And it's like, I don't think loopback is terribly expensive. I think it's under $100. So that's an option if other ways are intimidating. But if you can do it through your audio interface, that's the way to go.
Great. Is there anything else before I stop recording this session with you and I, and before we go to Q&A, is there anything else that you think is important final thoughts on our talking portion of the presentation here?
Yeah, I would say I'm just noticing on here that just a sort of a nitpicking note. IPDTL, everyone seems to think that's better than Source Connect now. It's the same technology, so it doesn't make any sense that would be better. It's basically the same. And just so people know, if you're doing a long recording, say with someone else somewhere else, the codec, it does sound remarkably good. However, it does sort of compress and expand enough that if you recorded locally your voice and the voice coming in, later on, if you tried to line things up, it would drift because it's not as the high quality of it. It's kind of like YouTube in a way. And I know that doesn't really make any sense because most of this stuff would just be if someone's in a hurry and it sounds better than if you're using Zoom audio, if you're connecting for a client or something. But that's one of the other things that comes to mind is that if you're somebody that does a lot of political voiceover stuff, that oftentimes they need you quickly in a pinch. They need you now, and they need good quality audio. That's where I would definitely invest and make sure that you were available and you had a treated space and that you had a good setup that sounded good, because that can be very lucrative. And if you're not available, they'll find someone else.
And when you have that work, it's good to keep it because it keeps coming.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Bill, thank you for all of this information. This was incredible and valuable.